What's going on, everybody? It's me, Viv, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am doing this intro in the future as a voiceover because, funny story, so I prepared this tutorial and I made this dress a really long time ago, and then I kind of took a break from videos because I wasn't really feeling the content that I was making, and I wasn't really happy with this video exactly. But I was like, okay, well, it's still a good video, I still want to put it out for you guys, and I asked on Instagram, do you guys still want to see this video? Because I lost the pattern that is supposed to go with it. And you guys said yes, so I was like, okay, I'll show it. So the pattern that you see me using in this video is not available at the moment. I might try to remake it, and then I will post it on my blog. However, at the moment, it is not available right now because I did indeed lose it. So I apologize for that, but nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial for this really adorable little polka dot dress that is inspired by J.Ing and Bestdressed Ashley. It's pretty cute, pretty easy, I would say, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial despite the fact that there is no pattern. To start off, you're going to need to cut a long rectangle for the skirt. This should be 30 inches by however long you want your skirt to be, plus a little bit for seam allowance. I would say probably ½ an inch for seam allowance. Mine is about 7.5 inches in width, and then it's 30 inches in length, as I mentioned. And then you will also need to cut out of the same fabric your sleeve and bodice pieces, which I know these aren't labeled. They have my pleas for manifestations of hoping this pattern would work, but I will link the pattern down in the description box down below for you. So the first thing that you want to do is go ahead and grab one of the sleeves, face it right sides together with one of the bodice pieces, and sew down the curve to attach the sleeve to the bodice like so. Do that on either side so that you have both of the sleeves attached to the front of the bodice, and then take the back pieces, which are going to be like, they're cut in half already so you can know that they're the back, and then go ahead and attach those to the sleeves as well. And it doesn't really look like a bodice, but once you do this, you can kind of see the bodice coming together. It'll look different once we gather everything up and add elastic. So that's what we're going to do now. So fold up the bottom of the sleeve by about 1 centimeter or so to fit your elastic, and cut 2 pieces of elastic that are 4.5 inches and feed them through the casing to gather the sleeve. Depending on the size of your elastic, you might need to increase the length of the sleeve to accommodate for the width of your elastic when you make the casing. So once you have both of the ends of the elastic strung through the sleeve, pin them in place to make sure you don't lose them, and again do this on both sleeves so that both of them are gathered like so, and your bodice should look something like this. Now take the sleeves and fold them in half, and then pin them right sides together with each other, and then pin up the side seam of the bodice as well, and be sure that you hang on to those pieces of elastic and leave some hanging off of the end of the sleeve just like this, so that you don't lose them while you're sewing. All pinned up, it'll look something like this, and then you're going to go ahead and sew the side seams of the bodice one by one. And also you'll notice that you have to pivot a little bit at the side seam, and that is completely normal. That's part of the pattern, so don't worry about you having to pivot over like a little tiny seam instead of sewing like straight down. It's part of the pattern. So once you're done that, go ahead and flip the bodice right sides out, and you can see it coming together now. So it looks really cute and very pretty. Go ahead and fold down the top of the bodice and sew it in place using a straight stitch to create a casing for the elastic. And I forgot to mention, if you want, you can clean finish the edges of like the bodice and the sleeves with a zigzag stitch to keep them nice and clean and prevent them from fraying, but because it's on the inside, you don't actually have to do this. It's just personal preference. Needle with some thread, and this doesn't actually have to match the thread of your bodice. It's just going to be used to create some loose running stitches on the middle section of the bodice, so in between the two side seams in that middle front piece of the bodice. That's what you're going to sew a line of basting stitches across that bottom edge and pull on it to gather it. And you're going to gather it so that the bodice is the same width as the waistband. And I forgot to include a clip earlier of the waistband, but the waistband that you want to cut is going to be around 11.5 inches. You can actually round that up to 12. I think making it 12 will be a little bit easier, and it's however wide you want it to be. Mine is actually a little bit wider here in this clip. I cut it to be bigger than I wanted it to be, just in case I wanted a different look. So mine is about 2 inches in this clip, I think. But if I were you, I would make yours probably 1.5 inches will do, and you'll see why I made mine bigger in the last clip. And then so go ahead, once you gather the bodice, sew it right sides together onto the waistband. And you can see that when I did that, I just kind of pushed my needle out of the way. I didn't take it out initially, but then once I finished sewing everything, then I am going to clip off that gathering stitch so it doesn't bother me anymore. Then cut a piece of elastic that is 9 3/4 inches and thread it through the top casing of the bodice like so. And by the way, I am using I think it's 1/4 inch with elastic. So then once I have the elastic strung through both sides and the ends are peeking out, I'm gonna just pin them in place so I don't lose them like so. And the bodice should look something like this, very cute. So what I do now is I stitch not 1 inch, about 1/2 inch away from either edge to secure the elastic in place like you see I did here. And that is because that is the only part of the bodice that we need to be gathered. The rest of it can actually be cut off. So what you can see here is I'm stretching out the end of elastic that I left on the bodice. I'm going to stretch it out and then I'm going to clip it so that the last part of my bodice, so the end 1/2 inch on either side, is not elasticated, it lays flat. And here's what I did, I mentioned it earlier, is I cut my little waistband to be a little bit smaller, and I kept that scrap. So now I'm going to move on to the skirt, and I'm going to sew 2 lines of basting stitches across the top edge and gather it. I've done this so many times in videos before, so I didn't feel the need to go in depth on it. But you want to gather it until it's the same width as the waistband and the bodice, and then flip the bodice right sides together with this skirt and sew it into place like so. Be sure you attach it to the waistband, and then your dress is going to look something like this. Now take that strip from earlier and go ahead and face it on the bodice side of the skirt like this, and then sew it in place, but don't go over the seam allowance that we created earlier, like the seam that we created earlier. Trim down the seam allowance and then flip it up towards the bodice, or flip it down towards the skirt, depending on how you did it. It really doesn't matter how you did it, this is just how I had it. And what you'll notice is that on the inside, that creates a little clean edge, and then from the front of the dress, you can go ahead and top stitch that down to create my voice crack, to create some top stitching on the bodice and also secure that in place. Then go ahead, fold the dress in half and sew up the back seam about 3/4 of the way, stopping just before you get to the waistband and the bodice, and then attach Velcro to close up the dress and do a hem across the bottom, and then you are done. Here's what the finished dress looks like. I know that this is probably not my best instructional video, but I think it's kind of self-explanatory. And as you know, I indeed lost the pattern. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this that actually have patterns when I decide, or when I promise to deliver you guys patterns. Normally they do have patterns, so subscribe for that and other American Girl doll videos such as hairstyle videos, outfit videos, Etsy openings and reviews, and more. And if you have any suggestions on what tippings you want to see me make, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below as well, and I will talk to you again in my next video. Bye!